Thank you, Siri. Hi, everybody. My name is Rick Scott, and I am the curator of the Protection Island Museum. Before we get rolling here, I want to acknowledge that we are on the unceded land of the Snohomish tribe, clan, nation. Take your choice, I guess. One of the things that happened on this land a long time ago, well, it's called Execution Point. Now it's called Gallows Point because it was an execution of two natives who were charged with murder, tried under British law. The first time I believe that natives were charged under the British law. Am I correct on that one, Tyler?
Yes, sure.
Yes. And so it's especially meaningful to me that we are here on their land presenting to you today. As the curator of the museum, the first thing that I thought about when I was planning to do this was, what is the function of the museum? And for me, museums hold a special place in my heart. I have made my living as a musician almost all my life, with the exception of 3 years in the military. Since I was 15, I've been a traveling, touring musician. Sometimes acting, sometimes doing other things, but they're all musical. And that has made me a journeyman. And on my journeys, one of the things that I've always done is go to museums. You pull into Kelowna. What do you know about Kelowna? Well, go to the museum. You'll find out some things. Go to Courtney, great museum there. And it was a way that I could ground myself to where I was, hopping along, barnstorming different communities. And I fell in love with museums. I really fell in love with the gift shops. Great stuff in the gift shops. And I came to Protection Island. One of the reasons that we moved here 23 years ago was that we were looking for a place that was close to the sea, preferably an island, but easy to get in and out of, because I was a touring musician back then. And Protection Island just fit the bill that way. And we moved here. I'd say about 3 weeks after we got here, I started venturing out onto the island to see what it was really about. And I walked around the island, following the different roads, figuring out why are they all named after Treasure Island, discovering neighbors that I was now going to become friends with. And I got all the way here to the south end, and I walked up to see the Beacon House and walking around that, and I looked over and I saw this little building with a little sign on it, hand painted. And when I saw this sign, my heart skipped a beat because I love museums. And I thought, oh man, I've moved to a place that has a museum. This is fabulous. And I went up to the door and I went to open the door and it was locked. And there was a little sign above the doorknob that said, "There's nobody here." If you want to see what's inside, call this phone number. And I had a pen, so I wrote down the phone number on the palm of my hand. And I was just thinking, oh, there's a museum on this island. That is so cool. And I got up to the corner of Colverton and Captain Morgan. The captains are hard to keep track of on this island. I got to that corner, and there's a house that still stands today that's all kind of a dark, deep red burgundy house. You know the one I'm speaking of? And I got to that house and something caught my eye, and I looked to my left, and coming around the corner of that house on a little tiny railroad track was a 3/4 size replica of a Welsh mining train with a very old man sitting on the coal car, feeding little pieces of coal into a little boiler. And he was coming around the corner, and I'm not believing what I'm seeing. I'm having a religious experience. We got a museum and we got a choo-choo train, and the choo-choo train came right up in front of me and stopped. And the man looked at me and said, "Want to ride?" Yeah. So I got on the train and I started going around, and I was gushing like you see me do right now and saying, "Oh, this is so great. We got a museum and now there's a train. I love this island already." And the museum wasn't open, but I got this guy's number on it. He says, "That's me." And my reaction was, "Of course it is." That was Parker Williams. And Parker Williams became my mentor, but He told me tales about the museum, and I told him tales about how I got to the island and how much I love museums and how many museums I've seen. And by the fourth time around his house, I was the new curator. Parker was leaving, and he wanted someone to take over the museum, and he decided I fit the bill. And that's really my only qualification. I love museums and I love Parker. And I'm fortunate enough to have been doing this now for almost 22 years. I'll just read you a little thing that is sort of the statement that the museum has as to why and what we are doing. There's three things. One of them is to nurture, foster, and develop community awareness of local history and culture through activities and events. The second one is to maintain and develop the museum collection. That's the big one for us, is that we, and I say we, I speak of my board of directors who are in this room, and you'll get to meet them later, but our purpose is to be the caretakers for this incredible history of this incredible island. That's what we're about. When I got to be the curator, I kind of panicked for a minute because I realized I didn't know what being a curator meant. But I've met a lot of curators in my time, so I phoned one up that I knew in Ontario, and he was a friend of mine, and I'd been to his museum many times, so I phoned him and I said, okay, I'm a curator. What do I do? And he said, you tell a story, Rick, and you try to get it right. That's what you do. And he said, oh, and also you're a musician, you should play a few times in there when it's empty and nobody's there. Go in and play some music, it'll help. So I do that, and I try to tell the stories, just like the story I'm telling you right now. But now I want to tell you a little bit different story. It's one that we have created, the board of directors has created, to give you kind of an overview of some of the things that we've done. And it really is just a taste. Over the 20 years that we've been doing this, we have put on many, many events. We've had many, many cultural events. We've had croquet tournaments. We've had art exhibits. We've had historical exhibits. And we've put together a little collage of just some of the things that we've done on the island over the last couple of decades, just to give you an idea of what we're doing. And it'll begin as soon as I give the secret message. This is the original lightkeeper's cottage. It was built in 1939. Now the light was automated in the 1950s, and the lightkeeper left in the 70s. In 1960, Frank Ney and Nanaimo Realty bought the island, subdivided the island, and for $8 down and $8 a month, you could have your own lot on what was Douglas Island, is now Protection Island. The P.I. Lions Club used the lightkeeper's cottage for monthly meetings, and in 1980, Parker and Tilly Williams converted 2 rooms of this building to be an exhibit for the miners' artifact. Just before we go into the museum, I want to show you something. We put a plaque up on our wall commemorating the loss of life. The loss of life was in September 10th, 1918. The mine shaft is only a few hundred yards from where I'm standing. And on that day, on that morning, 16 men got in the cage to go down the mine shaft cable broke and they all fell to their death. And we decided that it would be a good thing if we had a little memorial for them, because they never got one. We had a beautiful memorial service. The city put together this beautiful plaque, put it up on our wall. And I think once a year now we're going to have a little memorial just to remember those that passed away that terrible day and think about our history a little bit more. But anyway, more history. Come on inside. Well, the first thing you should see when you come in the museum is, of course, the artifacts that we've collected from the mine. Most of these were collected by Parker, and we've had a few good additions since then. We also have a nice collection of maps in our museum. This is the pride of our fleet right here, is this old map of Protection Island. And right next to it, the new map of Protection Island. It was done by our friends Allison and Trudy. And they kind of go well together. But let me show you the main exhibit room. This is our main exhibit room, and I'm sorry to say there's not anything in it. There hasn't been anything in it for almost 2 years now. Hopefully this year we'll get started again. But take a look around. You should know that a lot of wonderful things have been exhibited in this room. I became the curator in 1999. My wife Valley and I were newbies. We didn't know many people. I had to figure out a way to introduce myself as the curator. So I put up a little notice in the ferryboat waiting room. That's because my neighbor Doug Ruff hadn't built the community bulletin boards yet. And the sign said, "Do you collect interesting things? Would you like to display them and share your passion with the island?" My first offers came from Sandra Headley and Jürgen Goring. Both responded by saying they wanted to help. And Jürgen said, "I not only want to help, I have a display. Pianos." I said, "Well, Jürgen, our museum is really small, and I don't think we can put more than 1 or 2 pianos in there." And Jürgen said, no, not pianos, piano parts. Now, Jürgen is a piano technician. He repairs them. He tunes them. He is an expert on its evolution and design. He exquisitely showed us how the piano is truly a sum of its parts, and it was a wonderful exhibit. After the success of the pianoforte exhibit, the floodgates opened, and over the next 20 years, we were so fortunate to place exhibits in this room that showed the true colors of the people that live on this island.
Some of our best shows were inspired by suggestions from islanders. Norm Loudon approached me one day and said, "You know, you should have an exhibit of things that islanders made. You could call it, 'Look What I Made.'" The museum has hosted a number of talks and nature walks presented by islanders who are experts in their field. One of the highlights was our own exhibit of the ecosystems of Protection Island. Where would we be without Station Number 7 and our amazing first responders? Residents raised money to purchase our ambulance, and funds were matched by the city. The community participated in work parties to paint and beautify the building.
Folks, the boat returns to town every hour on the hour until 10 o'clock tonight. That's our last scheduled trip. Every hour on the hour until 10.
The protection connection. Something that happens to me. It's happened to me twice. Perhaps it's happened to some of you. It happened to me in Hong Kong and in Mexico. Someone comes up to me and says, "Where are you from?" I say, "Canada." "Oh, where in Canada?" "Oh, a little island off the west coast." "Oh, what island is that?" Protection Island." And then they look at you and they smile and go, "Dingy Dock Pub." Bob and Hilda Bannard had a dream. The dream was to build a pub, and they did it. A floating one. It was built here on site in sometimes very miserable weather. In the spring of 1989, the Dingy Dock Pub was opened.
Protection Island off Nanaimo has a new watering hole that's literally on the water. The Dingy Dock Pub is not only a floating pub, but also a licensed vessel. The operation is the first of its kind in BC.
The idea here is just, well, obviously you want to make a living at this, but you want to have some fun.
Oh yeah, that's all it is to me now. It's an interesting thing because I've done it once before and it was successful. This time around, we did it a little bit more unique and tried to make it just a little bit more interesting, and it's interesting for us. We're gonna have a lot of fun doing this.
The Dingy Dock is iconic and gives us one of the most dependable ferry services anywhere. And that's why we decided to present its story as an exhibit in our museum. Many of the pub's unique decorations, including currency from around the world, and showcase them in our exhibit. Does this boat look familiar? Well, what is now the waiting room was originally a boat brought down from the Okanagan, and Bob often used it for sea lion tours. Now, where the workshop is, at the top of the ramp, was once a small store selling grocery supplies. You could even rent cassette movies. And there was also a bakery with delicious cookies and cinnamon buns. Little advice from your friendly curator. If someone offers you a free cannon, just say no. Well, we said yes. And now we have a cannon, but it sure took a lot more work than we had bargained for. The cannon arrived, but the original carriage didn't survive the journey. Tauno had to design and build a new one.
The Protection Island Garden Tour was started in 1993 by Esme Aird and Heather Cooling, both avid gardeners. The garden tour is the museum's main fundraiser, with all proceeds going to the Protection Island Museum. Admission is by donation, where you receive a map and write-up of the gardens. We hold the garden tour in June, and there are usually 8 to 10 gardens that are featured. We do not strive for perfection in gardens, but feature old established gardens, new gardens, and those in transition. It is an island highlight. And of course, our famous barbecue happens at the end of the tour. Smokies are the highlight. Many a Protection Islander vegetarian has been noted to scarf down several, but we show no judgment. Our many, many thanks to the gardeners who have opened up their gardens for all to see. We so appreciate all their work, and they have raised a lot of money for our museum funds. We thank you.
One of the museum's jobs is to document the island culture in all its wonderful and strange expressions. For example, we have a bus stop, but no bus. We have a baseball field that's gone to the dogs. And with the exception of Florida and Dubai, we have more golf carts per capita than anywhere else in the world. And yet, no golf course. But we do know what to do with our golf carts. They're perfect for a parade. To say that we have a unique nautical culture would be a huge understatement.
The museum gift shop has been an added feature to showcase Protection Island artists. PI is home to many musicians, potters, authors, photographers, jewelers, knitters who produce high-quality gifts that we have chosen to display and sell at the museum. We offer a variety of note cards, posters, books, the PI color map, CDs, jewelry, ceramics, lotions, and t-shirts, among many things. And of course, our cookbook. Our famous cookbook was published in 2012, and it's a collection of Protection Island's best and sometimes very unique recipes. This little book has been a bestseller for sure, and there are rumors there could be another one in the works.
It's just across the water between the ocean and the sea. Some trees cold and sandstone. It's an island home for me. Well, it's hard to sing about it, 'cause I would not want to gloat. Let me say, I know I'm lucky. Come on, step onto the boat. I'm not saying my home is better. Home is where your heart will rest. Wherever roots can get you grounded is where you're gonna feel the best.
Pretty cool, huh?
Yeah. I've seen it about 6 times.
Oh, excellent, excellent. I guess, is there any questions? Excellent.
Was that all your music?
Pardon me?
Was that your music?
Some of it, yeah, a lot of it was. We also had David Essex playing that lovely little piece for Thora and Jerry. And at the end, that's John Gogo playing his island song. We have 2 CDs that we made. And Peter was actually the force behind this project. We made 2 CDs of songs written by and for the island, by islanders. It's the Protection Collection. So that's pretty much all I have to say. I would like to say, at the beginning, I said our statement has 3 parts to it, and I read 2 of them. The third one is not in the statement, it's one that I'm making. And that is, the purposes of the museum is to play a part in the community that keeps us connected to each other and tells it through stories. I really can't express this enough. Stories are so important. And one of the things that has happened with the COVID experience that we've all gone through is that we haven't heard a lot of stories. We've been hearing a lot of opinions, and opinions are fine. They give us information, but opinions, they leave the soul dry. They can cause problems. They can cause fights. Stories help you understand. And that, in turn, for a community, boosts our immune system so that when trouble comes or when plagues come of any kind, our immune system is strong because we've told our stories to each other. And for me, that's everything about the museum. And I just, could the directors just stand up for a minute so everybody can see who the board of directors are? We're missing two, we're missing Heather, but those are the warriors right there that are doing so much for us. And just also, I want to thank the Lions Club, Peter. I want to thank the Lions Club. I want to thank the Lions Club. Look at this beautiful room. This is one of the first events we've had in this room. When I came in, I said, Peter, has there been any music in here yet? He said, no. I said, I'll fix that. So I took out my girlfriend, I played a tune and it sounded great. And the Lions Club does so much for us. It's a movie unto itself. I want to thank Emily. Emily, thank you so much for taking the time and the energy to make all this possible.
It's a pleasure.
Well, you make it look like a pleasure. And she's not here right now, but Jessie Zhang, who did a lot of the video, the editing, she helped direct it. She did everything. We just sat around going, well, what about that or that? And she'd make it happen. And Jessie, I know you're out there and somewhere out there in the cloud. We love you, Jessie. Thank you. And I want to thank the volunteers. There's one now that just, and you gave me this glass of water. I couldn't have made it without you. Thank you very much. And I also just want a little shout out to Parker and Tilly Williams, who sort of the founders of our organization. I hope they're watching today, but Parker was such a mentor to me of keeping me straight on the course for what a museum does. And he was always encouraging us. He would always come to our events and he just looked like a proud papa. So thank you, Parker. And still no questions. Huh? Okay.
I have one.
Yes.
Where's his train?
Pardon me?
Where is his train?
He took it with him. He left the island. That's why I got to be curator. He was leaving. And I said, Parker, leave the choo-choo. Because wouldn't that be just so awesome? We could have and it was on little miniature tracks. We could just have it going along the road. And wouldn't you love to have, yeah. But we didn't, maybe that's something we can do in the future. Or maybe, I don't know. I'd love to have a choo-choo here. But actually, it was rumored, I don't know how true it is, that Frank Ney, who developed the island, at one point wanted to have a train, a real train, that ran across the other island, across Newcastle Channel onto our island. Can you imagine what that would have been like? Oh, yes. And so, let me see if I just said everything I want to say. Board of Directors, have I said everything that should be said? And I guess that's.
You could invite people to.
Yeah, thank you. That's what I want. Oh, Gene, where would we be without you? If you'd like to play with us, we would love to play with you. If you'd like to be a volunteer when we're doing events, please let us know because we need help. If you would like to be a member of the community, of our museum community, it's $10 a year and $15 for a family. What a deal. And that means you get into all our events for free. which are free anyway, but you really get in for free. And there'll be someone there to dust you off as you come through the door or something. We'll figure out something special for you. But it would, and also it would, if there's anybody out there who is just an absolute magician with a computer, help us. We've got Emily and she's fantastic, and Jesse is great too. But we want a digital, see, I can't even say the word. That's how bad I am with a computer. We want to put on the computer all of we have a huge archive. So we want to get that on computer because we're running out of drawer space. And so if you want to be a part in any way with our museum, if you have an idea for an event, let us know. And mostly, some of you new folks, I bet you've got collections that you've been doing since you were this high to a grasshopper, and you'd say, oh, I could show you my bottle cap collection. Well, yeah, we'll do it. We'll put your name in lights. Bottle caps, bottle caps. And just, we want to have fun with you. We want you to be a part of our reindeer games, as we say. So please help yourself to us, and thank you for coming today, and thank all you people out there, slightly delayed from my voice, where my lips are moving. I can watch this. Yeah. Well,
Kate has a question from Zoom land. She's wondering, will there be a summer opening this year?
Lord, I don't know. We'd love to do it. The problem is it takes a lot of planning to do it. And for instance, we have this, as you saw in our presentation, we have the garden tour, which is really a fantastic event, but it takes months and months of prep to get it to work right, to get it. So if people don't want to walk, we have a golf cart, we'll drive you around it, to which gardens we're going to go see, to how we're going to do the events up here at the Beacon House when we're finished with the tour. It takes a lot of time and effort, as it does to do the exhibits. So I hope that we will, but I just don't know. I just can't answer that because the way of the world is a little unstable at the moment still. So hopefully yes, but I just can't answer that with a yes or a no. So it's a hopeful yes.
Sandy has a question.
Yes.
I have two quick things. There's still lots of treats and coffee. I hope you'll stay and visit a bit. And I'd love to hear Rick's song while we're still sitting quietly so we can hear you.
Your first musician.
Oh, okay. Why, look, I just happened to have brought my instrument with me. No, I call it my good dear friend David Essig, who is going to be doing an event. I believe, David, I hope I'm getting this right, April 9th. That's right. Yeah. And David is, well, he's many things. To me, he's a musical wonder. And he's also a brilliant writer. I think I can say honestly, one of the highlights has been, we recorded an album together a few years back, and it was just a joy to work with him and play music with him. He is going to be doing this event on April 9th, where he is releasing a book and a CD, and the CD is the music that inspired the book. I think I got that right. There's stories in the book that inspired songs, and songs in the book that inspired stories. It'll be quite an event. So he will be the inaugural musical act in this room. Good acoustics, good acoustics. But I wanted to steal his march. So I came in about 2 hours before y'all did. And I started walking around playing. And now I'm going to be the first one to play a song in an audience here. An auspicious occasion. Okay, historically speaking, here's a little story. In 1913, a ship pulled out of Nanaimo, loaded down with dynamite, gunpowder, and various other explosives, covered with a tarp. And it pulled out, it got about just past Gabriel Island. This is January, snowstorm, incredibly horrible sea, and a ship coming in signaled this ship that was leaving and said, don't cross the strait today. It is too rough. It is too crazy out there. So the ship made a turn to come back into Nanaimo and was hit sideways with a swell just as the fireman was shoveling in coal into the is it the boiler? Yeah, into the boiler. And all the hot flaming coal poured out onto the deck in the lower part of the ship. The ship caught on fire. They tried to put lifeboats over the side. They were taken by the ocean. So the only recourse they had was to take their 80 tons of explosives and find land. It happened to be this island. So they ran ashore somewhere, we don't know where exactly, on Protection Island. The crew jumped off the ship. The ship exploded with such force that it basically vaporized. It blew almost all the trees down. It blew out windows in Nanaimo. There was no one killed. The ship was called the Oscar. And one of the events that we did, one of the early events that we did was, because Parker told me this story, and he said, we don't know where it happened, and we don't really know why, what are the details of it? We got to find out this mystery. And I didn't know how to find out the mystery, so I put up a notice on the bulletin board and said, here's what happened as far as we know, you make up the rest. And so we had an event where people came and told their story of what they thought happened at the Oscar, and it was called Night at the Oscar. There were a lot of contributions. There were plays, there were monologues, there was art. The children made a map of Protection Island and got a little wind-up car and put a cherry bomb on it and drove it into the map of Protection Island and it blew up. We had fire jugglers. We had the whole 9 yards on it. And this was my contribution. I am not a wealthy man. My life is on the sea. I give and take on the Georgia Strait, and it gives and takes me. But never on dry land did I ever think I'd be. And now she's gone, 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 and not a trace of her is found. I like to think she's singing just for me. Wherever you will, where you're born, and we sail into the dawn. Oh, Oscar, won't you sail away with me? Oh, Oscar, won't you sail away with me? We pulled out from Nanaimo, before the mainland we were bound. With 80 tons of the devil's dust on fire we ran aground. As long as I may live, I'll not forget that sound. And now she's gone, 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 not a trace of her is found. I like to think she's singing just for me. Where you will, where are you born? And we sail into the dawn. Oh, Oscar, won't you sail away with me? Oh, Oscar, won't you sail away with me? I still smell the smoking fire, and I can taste the fear. Protection Isle was a million miles, an eternity so near. As long, but the sound of ship on rock was music to my ear. And she's gone, 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 not a trace of her is found. I like to think she's singing just for me. Fare thee well, ere you're born, and we sail into the dawn.